And it's time now for From the Armchair, which is presented by Raymore and Flanagan. Raymore and Flanagan is a proud partner of the Buffalo Bills, and here to help us out from the armchair is former Bills center Mitch Morse, who is also the host of the Monday Mornings with Mitch podcast. Mitch, welcome in. Good to have you with us. Help us sort through this unfortunate performance on Monday Night Football last night. You've seen this team, Mitch. You've been part of teams that have dropped back-to-back games and then course-corrected successfully afterwards. So before we get into some of the observations from last night's game, Mitch, maybe just settle everybody's nerves a little bit and talk about how this team in the past has successfully course-corrected from back-to-back defeats before.
Yeah, I think it comes down to a word I use often, which is candidness. You have internal candid conversations with yourself, and you have candid conversations within your team. You do some self-scouting, and then you just bring your lunch pail, man. It's the NFL. You're going to drop 2 games. That's part of the gig. You don't want it to be. Fans definitely don't want it to be. But if you ride this emotional roller coaster, dude, if you pander and if you listen to the outside noise too much, then this is just going to be a snowball effect. But if you kind of double down and hammer out what you know works and then just execute. I mean, to be honest, it just looked like a team that desperately needs a bye week. And I think this is one of the earlier bye weeks this team's had in quite some time. And Lord works in mysterious ways, man. These bye weeks tend to come to teams when they desperately need them the most. And I think this team is looking for one right now.
Yeah, it's a rough spot, particularly on a Tuesday morning, because last week you can kind of look at the Patriots game and say, well, we turned it over 3 times and it was a 3-point game. That's a game even in the midst of not playing their best. The Bills felt like they shoulda, coulda, woulda won that game. And that's the way the Bills get beat. You know, they kind of help their opponent. It was one of those close losses that we've seen. This one, it was not good. It was not good. This was a loss. They got beat by a team that was playing good, that was talented, and came to play, and they just couldn't match him. That's the worst part about this loss yesterday and how it was different from the Patriots loss.
Yeah, Steve, to your point, I thought this is a team not knowing too much about the Falcons, but turning the TV off last night, I could tell you that I have the utmost respect for how they play, the talent they have, and just the physicality they bring and the explosiveness that they have. I thought that they, first of all, brought pressure more than any team we've played against, right? Well over 50%. And then that rush attack with Bijan Robinson, and I forget the other running back's name, but they had over 230 yards rushing. I mean, Bijan Robinson had over 8 yards a carry, and it was a credit to, of course, him, but I thought the offensive linemen blocked well. I thought the receivers for them blocked well. I thought they just came out and just flat out played really good football. So it definitely felt different than the week before, but that doesn't give you pause in what this team in Buffalo has. I think this is just one of those things that you have to learn from, right? Like from the jump, it just felt like the Bills were kind of trying to scratch from behind, claw from behind, even when it was a 7-7 ball game, right? Like it just felt very tough to feel like we were ever in the driver's seat, and that's okay. There's a learning experience in that just as much as there's a learning experience from last week.
Yeah, it was interesting. Raheem Morris wins the coin toss and elects to receive. You could tell he wanted to get a jump on the Bills, get ahead on the scoreboard, get the crowd into it, et cetera, and it worked for them at the start of that football game. All right, so observations from this one. Sam Franklin has been a standout on special teams since the Bills acquired him, and man, there was some jaw-jacking this whole game between him and some of those guys on the special teams units over on the other sideline for the Falcons, and it did not stop the entire game.
I thought Sam Franklin, he just jumped off the screen for me, man. You talk about a physical dude, a physical-ass dude on special teams, a tone setter. This dude does it all. I mean, year 6 guy, spent most of his time in Carolina. Just the heads-up play right there. And then I think his blocking and his tackling on this is remarkable. He has one of his punt returns where he's at the bottom of the screen here, and he just dogs a dude. He plays physical. He plays angry. Oh, my goodness, look at that. And then he gives him a little bit of extra stank right after that right there. He just a tone setter in a game that I felt like that might have been lacking a little bit. And there's certain precursors for that. And then, of course, outside looking in, that might not be totally fair. But That's the kind of guy you want to put up on the screen the day after a game and say, look, this is how this game can go. This is the type of tone we want to set, the celebration we want to have of the game. Why don't we all implement this, find a way to reset during these few days, and then come back and play like this dude? Number 28's a stud.
Yeah, I thought so too. That's what a special teams guy can do. It's not just about making the tackle, or it's about playing with an edge and some grit and some aggression, and the whole every word you can use, just turning it up a notch where you get noticed for that, and that's what makes other guys want to do that too, and that's leadership.
Without a doubt. And I think when you saw that huge block, you see the offense coming on the field. I think in the fourth quarter, you see the offensive linemen all going, giving them, dabs, knucks. That sets the tone, man. I mean, as an offense or defensive guy, you're watching the kickoff, whatever special teams is on, and you're looking for that tone set. That is one of those things that when you're running on the field and the boys are fired up and they're giddy and they're hooting and hollering with each other, it's just feeding that energy, right? And that permeates, even if you're not on the same side of the ball. Special teams, I find that special teams unit sets the tone for most everything that you do. And it's maybe the most overlooked assignments, execution, and one of those things, similar to offensive line play. You don't really notice it until someone messes up. But I just love the way that dude played, man. It was so much fun.
Give me an idea, too, that we've seen this the last couple of weeks where it just seems like the Bills, for lack of a better way to put it, they're not buttoned up. You got guys lining up off sides. You got that kind of thing going on. You can't. Josh has failed to execute a handoff on the end around, and I'm sure there's stuff in other areas of the game that aren't quite as self-evident. What is a course for this club in the coming 10 or 12 days or 14 days? Okay, we got to mind our business here.
Yeah, I think minding your business is well said, right? And minding your business takes many different facets. Of course, it comes down to the players. How could I have executed this game plan better? How could I have done that? So on and so forth in technique. But these bye weeks, what you don't see behind the scenes is these coaches might take one day, give themselves one good night of sleep. For coaches, that's about 7 hours of sleep is a good night of sleep. And then they self-scout like you would not believe. They go through every single rep of every single game. They go through tendencies. They go through the analytics department comes in, and they just see what has been working, what's not been working. Why is this things aren't working, not working? And then that way you have a game plan, a paper. You can put it, a tangible thing you can give these players and say, listen, this is the things we have been doing well. So let's keep that going. But here are the things that aren't going well. But now we have it. Here's the script. Here it is. Let's go execute that now in practice and in games.
All right. Second half, Bills offense comes out and they go 22 personnel pretty much all the way down the field and put 7 on the board. You like that?
Yeah, I did, Chris. This is another thing that this team just keeps doing, which is executing after halftime. You have a 9-play drive where you don't even have a third down, right? That's so unique. You have these big chunks on first, convertible seconds, and then you have that big 16-yard catch and run for a touchdown. It's just everything you want. It's the execution. There's no negative plays, no net zero plays. And it just shows that this team is poised to make those adjustments, right? So you want to see those implemented early on in the game and then go from there.
Yeah, and it did seem to key around a strong running game, and then even the play action that turned, Ray Davis loose to get into the end zone. Give us an idea of what the mentality is, and I get it. You can't do the same play and the same thing, everyone, but what happens and what kind of adjustments do you expect from a defense that you're facing? Kind of counter that, get into they're going to do this, so we're going to do this, and we did this in the first drive of the second half. What's going to happen next? Give us an idea of those conversations of what you expect after a drive that the Bills put together like that. What's the next step?
Well, I think that really good teams, which the Bills are, players are just as up front with coaches as coaches are with players in regards to what they think is going to work, what they see, some of the difficulties they're having. I thought one thing that the Falcons did very well, especially in the run game early, was these line stunts and movements, or going from a sub front to a base front, kind of making you have those late snap adjustments, which can just throw timing off a little bit. like you said, they loaded the box up early. And one thing that I saw this game that I hadn't seen quite a bit is getting in that 22 personnel and stuff, not so much running outside zone or bouncing duo. They're running between the tackles and they're getting chunk yardage. And I thought that was really nifty. And I thought that was a real tone setting thing. A lot of stuff's thrown around with offensive line tone setting. But when you can run between the tackles, get these double teams going and get your guy an opportunity to maneuver, be patient, and then hit a hole, which James Cook might be the best in the NFL doing. That's what you want to see. So it's also the coaches coming out saying like, hey, listen, this is something we definitely thought was going to work. They're presenting a different front. That's not it. Or more importantly, here are our protection rules. Here are the blitzes that we've seen quite a bit. Here are just some reminders, or you might even make protection changes like rules. Yeah, okay, we had this rule all week. That's not applicable to this game plan. This is the new rule. That way you guys get, I thought the one thing that the Falcons did very well was they made it difficult for identification and stunts, and they put a lot of pressure on their running backs in that pass protection. So it's just constant communication. I know that was a weird roundabout way of answering that, but it just comes down to lines of communication.
Yeah, that helps. You touched on, the reset here at the bye, but I want you to touch a little bit more on what we hear Coach McDermott talk about all the time, the player-driven leadership in the locker room. You're talking about intrinsic conversations that need to happen, and I know the players in this locker room to a man are going to look in the mirror, but what kind of leaders have to step forward when maybe the standard isn't being met from a performance standpoint to what do those conversations sound like player to player to maybe get more out of a guy that maybe isn't playing as good as his teammates know he can?
Sure. That's a good question. It kind of comes down to knowing your teammate to see how he digests different information or how he gets himself fired up or gets going, right? Some guys need an ass chewing. Some guys are their harshest critics, so they just need some affirmation. Some guys just need someone to chat with or talk to. Some guys, if they want, and maybe these leaders, maybe they feel like they can't be as vocal because they haven't been playing the best football themselves, or they're a little injured, or they're a little bit outside themselves. So first things first, we want this season to go as beautifully as possible. Yes, we've dropped 2 games before the bye week. I'm going to remove myself completely as a player. I'm going to find at least 48 to 72 hours where if I have a family, fully invested in my family. If I have an injury, yes, I'm in there to take care of my injury, not lick my wounds, but take care of my wounds and then get out of the building. So that when it's time, because they'll start watching football that next weekend, they'll get that itch, they'll have those thoughts again, but you give yourself an opportunity to at least hold on to it. Hold it. It's not slipping through your fingers because you feel like you're drowning because your body's shot, or you've just been grinding at this too long through training camp and stuff. It just give yourself a mental kind of reprieve, and that way you can be the best leader, the best delegator, the best follower, whatever it may be. You just have to find a way to remove yourself so that when you make these late game pushes, you make this late season push, hopefully into the playoffs, then you give yourself an opportunity to not be burnt out by then.
So one of the things that's followed this team around, even since training camp, is the injuries, and it's a lot of. There hasn't been too many catastrophic injuries, but this guy's down, that guy's down, now he's back down again. Give us an idea of the mentality and the drag it is on the total team, and even the guys that are healthy. The total mentality of we've got to do this with, now he's hurt, now this guy's hurt. We don't have all our best players. We're going to have to play this. And give us an idea of the mentality and the drag that this injury list has as you go forward, and it just seems to continue and continue and continue.
Yeah, it can be a drag if you let it. When you're hurt, Steve, and you can attest to this, when guys are off dealing with those injuries, whether they're on IR or out week to week, sometimes if you're one of those guys, you feel like you're not part of the team because you're not connecting with the guys, and that's not the case. Right. You're just usually guys are so enthralled with the process of what that day entails, what's going on, that you really like, okay, Dalton Kincaid's out. All right, well then let's not worry about that because we can't focus on that. But what does kind of, I would say, snowball a little bit is when you're one of those leaders and you're one of those guys and you're getting these injuries and it's nagging you and you're not yourself. You're not the player you want to be. In that way, you can't lead the way you think you should. So Yeah, I feel like it is kind of a strange injury bug this team's got. I don't know if it's totally unavoidable, but he gives you an opportunity this week just to at least catch your breath, have a game plan, and you're not scrambling, especially on a short week after a Monday to get guys out on Sunday.
Mitch, thanks for the time. As always, we appreciate it. That is From the Armchair, presented by Raymore and Flanagan with Mitch Morse.